All right, Baltimore City Council Ways and Means Committee, we're back for Council Bill 21-0080, Ordinance of Estimates for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2022. I'm Eric Costello, Councilman for the 11th District, Chair of the committee. I'm joined in chambers by Councilwoman Danny McCray, 2nd District, Councilman Isaac Yitzi Schleifer, 5th District, both members of the committee. We're also joined by Councilman Chris Burnett, 8th District, member of the committee, Councilman Mark Conway, 4th District, Council President Nick Mosby, Councilman Robert Stokes, 12th District, member of the committee, Councilman Ryan Dorsey, 3rd District, member of the committee, Council Vice President Sharon Middleton, 6th District, member of the committee. Representing Mayor Brandon Scott is Natasha Mehu and Nina Femlis. Representing Council President Nick Mosby is Nikki Thompson and Matt Stegman. And staff to the committee is Marguerite Curran. We are here for Department of Human Resources colleagues. As a reminder, we have the Health Department coming at 7 p.m. this evening. We have Quentin Herbert and Lindsay Wines from DHR. Mr. Herbert, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair and committee members. I'm Quentin Herbert, the Director of Human Resources. Through strategic partnerships and collaborations, DHR ensures human resources services, policies, procedures, and systems properly align with the city's aim to become an employer of choice. By attracting, developing, and retaining a high-performing and diverse workforce, DHR guides city agencies to foster a healthy, safe, and productive work environment for all employees, their families, and their communities. We achieve that through working through 7 strategic operational offices. Those are the Office of Policy and Compliance, the Office of Recruitment and Shared Services, the Office of Employee Benefits, the Office of Classification and Compensation, the Office of HRIS or HR Tech, the Office of Learning and Development, and the Office of EAP or Employee Assistance Program. Those 7 operational officers are broken out into 4 service numbers or 4 service areas, and we have a very brief presentation outlining those service areas. The first is administration, and the Office of Administration is responsible for the agency's overall performance and management, fiscal oversight, employment policy, development and implementation, employment law and regulatory compliance, and strategic communications. This office also houses the Civil Service Commission Administration, rulemaking, and HRIS operations. I will start off by saying that this is a CLS budget. We are maintaining current level of services. The recommended budget for administration increases contract lines to accurately reflect all contracts. The biggest contract here is our rent. So the budget is adjusted to make away allowances for the increase in rent annually. And it also transfers 1 general fund position from IT delivery services into HRIS for support with the Workday project. Next slide. The next office is Benefits Administration, or next service. And Benefits Administration, this service is responsible for administering the city's health and welfare benefits for all active employees, retirees, and their respective dependents. It also includes the dental plans, life insurance plans, prescription drug plans, and the city's vision plans and flexible spending accounts. This service also administers the citywide health and wellness program and the Employee Assistance Program, or EAP. Again, this is a current level services budget. What the major change here is that there are 2 positions that were previously funded by the Internal Service Fund for unemployment insurance services that will now be funded through the general fund. Those dollars will simply come into the budget. Our outcome measures for this service delivery, we measured the number of or percentage of EAP cases successfully resolved. And we also measured the percentage of employees engaging in wellness programs. And as you can see that for fiscal year 20, the number of employees that are engaging in wellness programs has been increasing. Of course, with COVID-19, our programming suffered a bit, but we have seen increased number of employees participating in those online programs that we have in our wellness program. Next slide.
Quentin, just 1 second. I want to take a moment to Also acknowledge we have City Administrator Chris Shorter and Deputy City Administrator Daniel Ramos on this one. Thank you. Back to you, Quentin.
Thank you. Our next service is Service 772, which is Civil Service Management. This service is comprised of the Office of Classification and Compensation and the Office of Shared Services and Recruitment. Class and Comp is responsible for classifying occupational groups, developing job classes and families, and completing compensation studies. The Office of Shared Services and Recruitment provides talent acquisition services, as well as providing HR support to agencies without HR offices or agencies that have HR offices that need additional wraparound support for HR services. It also has services to help to make sure that there's continuity and consistency with application of city policy and our employee programs. The recruitment team works to standardize the administrative life cycle for position requisitions and candidate selection criteria. You'll see that the measurements for this service include the number of class and comp projects requested. This is a new measure. As you can see, the number of requested projects declined a little bit in fiscal year 20. That's attributable to the COVID-19 pandemic. During the early part of the pandemic, fewer agencies were sending requests for things like reclassifications or position creations or abolishments. We anticipate that for fiscal year 22, as service delivery is continued to be restored, that number will increase. The other measure for this particular service is the percentage of class and comp projects completed within their deadline. Again, we saw a bit of a improvement in fiscal year 20, and we intend to meet our goal by the end of fiscal year 21. We've been turning those around relatively quickly as the Office of Class and Comp has staffed up. Next slide. The next service is service number 773, which is Learning and Development. Last year, Learning and Development was fully funded for those foundational services. And so I'm just going to cut to the chase. The output here with the number of training participants, I have some very good news that the fiscal year 20 actual was down. However, for fiscal year 21, our year to date is at 5,252 participants in our in-person or online training. That is does not include employees or stakeholders who have taken workday training of any kind. If we factor in the workday training, that number of participants jumps to 18,331. So we're very proud of the learning and development services that we have been providing, and we're revamping our new employee orientation, which is digital and available online. And we have a very robust learning and management system that has training available online for a whole array of subject matter. Next slide. That's it. And that's it. We are prepared for questions. Did you want, Mr. Chair, for us to include the Labor Commissioner's slide as we're presenting together, and then we can get into questions?
Yes, let's do that, please. Madam Labor Commissioner.
I was trying to unmute myself. Good evening. I'm here to talk about service number 128. And this service conducts contract negotiations with 7 unions, meet and confers with one managerial and professional society, negotiates collective bargaining agreements with respect to wages, hours, benefits, and other terms and conditions of employment. Our office oversees the administration of the Memorandum of Understanding and studies and makes recommendations for the establishment, revision, or correction of city policies with respect to labor relations matters. And I would add, we do that in conjunction with the Department of Human Resources. With respect to contract administration, what we look at once we finish negotiations for the most part would be grievance hearings that are requested by the unions or by individual employees. And for most bargaining units, we are the third step hearing officer. We're also the hearing officers for terminations, suspensions of 30 days or more, or involuntary demotions, just like the Civil Service Commission. And in addition to scheduling grievance hearings, we have an obligation, contractual obligation to complete them within a specified time period. During 2020, what we've done is we've done all of our hearings virtually using Microsoft Teams, and it has worked out effectively for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Quentin, can you please take the presentation down? Mr. President?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm okay at this time.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Ms. Moore Carter, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Just want to make sure I didn't say that wrong. Can you, there are 8 municipal labor organizations?
Yes, there are 3 AFSCME locals, city
Can
unit.
you go slow for me, please?
Sure.
AFSCME.
There are 3 AFSCME locals, AFSCME Local 44, 558, and 2202.
558 and 2202.
Yes, sir.
And what's 44?
Local 44 is labor and trades, representing approximately 2,000 employees.
Okay.
558 is community health nurses, and there are about 75 of them located solely in the Baltimore City Health Department.
Mhm.
Oh, let me go back. Local 44 is a citywide bargaining unit, so you'll find Local 44 members in every city agency. Local 2202, human service workers are found in the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success, and there are about 75 of them as well.
Okay.
City Union of Baltimore, known as CUB, represents secretarial, administrative, recreational inspectors, and there are about 2,700 of them. CUB represents the most employees in the city.
Mm-hmm.
MAPS, Managerial Professional Society, is not a union. It's a professional association representing division chiefs, professionals, accountants, engineers, etc. There are about 800 of them.
That's where our council staff, they're members of MAPS, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Then we have, and then I'll move on to public safety. So that we have the Baltimore City Firefighters, Local 734.
And 964.
And 964. 734 is about 1,300, and 964 is about 300. 964 is the fire officers.
Yep.
And then we have the Fraternal Order of Police units 1 and 2. Unit 1 would be the police officers, flight officers, and police agents, which is a police officer with an educational degree. And then Unit 2 is sergeants and lieutenants. And they're about, the police are, they're the second, they have the most employees that they represent next to CUB. They're about 2,200 police officers and about 400 sergeants and lieutenants.
Okay. Wow, that's not the first time you've answered that question on the fly. I can see that was pretty impressive. Can you tell me where each of the labor contracts are at? I know that you can't discuss anything related to negotiations. I'm just curious when each of those contracts expire.
Okay.
And what the length of time that the contract is for.
Okay, so
Does that make sense?
yes. So I would say all of the contracts expire June 30th of this year, which is the end of the fiscal year, and we're in negotiations with everyone. The FOP had, for Unit 1 and 2, they had a 3-year agreement which covered fiscal 19, 20, and 21. So it expires June 30th. We're actually in mediation with them because there are a lot of issues that separate us, especially in light of the legislative changes to the Law Enforcement Officers' Bill of Rights.
And let me just respectfully interrupt for 1 second. I don't necessarily need to know the reasons.
Okay.
And again, I don't
Okay.
want to go into anything that's like negotiation specific. I just want to get like a picture of the landscape.
Okay, and then the majority of the bargaining units, all the AFSCME units and CUB had 2-year agreements, which expired June 30th, and we're in negotiations with them. For the firefighters, we finished a one-year agreement covering this fiscal year, which is on the Board of Estimates agenda for tomorrow. And we're in negotiations with them for FY22 and beyond. With the fire officers, we were unsuccessful in reaching agreement. So in accordance with the charter, either party can request arbitration. So the fire officers requested arbitration, and we'll have a hearing over wages and other aspects, other terms and conditions of employment sometime in July.
So if the contract's not extended and you go to arbitration, it's basically like the contract is extended until you get that squared away, right? You operate under the.
That's
Okay.
correct.
I guess my question is, and I don't know that this is on you per se, but how did we get to the point where all 8 of them are expiring at the same time? Doesn't that create an insane workload for you and for law and for finance and everyone that's involved in this?
It absolutely does. What happened is, like I said, the majority of the bargaining units had a 2-year agreement and the FOP had a 3, and the fighters and officers negotiated a 1-year agreement, wanted to negotiate a 1-year agreement covering FY21, because by charter, when there's going to be a change in administration, you can't negotiate beyond that fiscal year. And the firefighters and fire officers were the ones who had that charter change in fear of a new administration coming in and not honoring wage increases in future fiscal years. But our plan going forward is to stagger the MOU so that we won't be in this situation again. Trying to juggle negotiations with all of the bargaining units at the same time.
Got it. That would have been my question / suggestion. So just to close this out, I'm guessing historically in the past, when there has been turnover in a mayoral election, 6 months in, you kind of have this situation where all of these contracts are set to expire, and that's historically what's happened. And that's why, because we had turnover in the mayoral election, that we have the situation we have now.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Got it. Perfect. Very helpful. Thank you. Colleagues?
Yes, Mr. Chair,
Madam Vice President?
how are you? I posed this question earlier today to the Finance Department, and I'll pose it to Human Resources as well. We started off with some very bad challenges with Workday, and I know I still get calls in my office from people wanting direction on their paychecks, particularly laborers that live in our districts and that live paycheck to paycheck. And basically, can you give an update on? I know there's been some problems with overtime. Some of the employees having access to computers, supervisors still not, recording things in a proper time. Can you just share, have there been steps or are there continued steps in improvement, or is there a target date for, you just give us some dialogue of where you are with this.
Thank you for the question, Madam Vice President. We actually receive ongoing data every morning at 9 o'clock. We also provide reports to the administration every week regarding how many employees are updating their timesheets after the close of a pay period, and those types of situations and scenarios. And also looking at how many off-cycle checks have to be issued within a given pay period. The Department of Human Resources has been working in partnership with the Department of Finance and with Baltimore City IT to ensure that any of these problems that employees are experiencing with work, they are resolved timely. We're at a place now where we just aren't seeing the systemic issues that we were seeing early on in the rollout of phase one of the implementation. We are seeing some issues that may be specific, and we can narrow it down even to specific bureaus within agencies. And so we've been working with the agencies to provide additional training where necessary, and also encouraging these supervisors to ensure that they are approving their timesheets in the system timely. We also took a retrospective look back at phase one's implementation, and we looked at some lessons learned. And we have been engaging in a speaking tour where we've been sharing what those lessons learned were in phase one's implementation. They have those lessons learned have kind of shaped how we're moving forward in phase two and phase three. And we don't anticipate those type of systemic issues that we experienced with phase one. But to your point, Madam Vice President, this is an ongoing, we're looking at this, the data comes in daily. How many people are logging on? How many people are clocking in? So we're getting to a point where the data is letting us know on a daily basis how our employees are doing with clocking in, putting in their time and things of that nature.
Mhm. Thank you. And then my second question, you know, I always seem to bring it up, and that's apprenticeship. And just for our new colleagues, you know, Baltimore City local government was one of the first in the country to start the apprenticeship system. Very proud, and we still have our ongoing water and wastewater. Apprenticeship used to be under human resources, working along with Deborah Moore Carter's office. And I guess you know, I personally think it needs to go back kind of to that office for control of, you know, the record keeping and so on. Is there, and this might be directed to Chris Shorter as well. Here we are, we're trying to do job creation in our city. Where are we with apprenticeship? It's so important for the young men and women that live in this city to start things in our school. It's there right in our face to start these apprenticeships in our school system early, pre-apprenticeship, hiring and training our own again. Can you comment on that? And or
If
also, yes.
if you don't mind, I'll start first. So we've reconnected with Baltimore City Public Schools through Michael Alexander. They have a specific office because they know and we know that not all students are going to go to college. So we've reconnected with the school system so that we can have a pipeline from the school system to jobs with Baltimore City government. We are also revising the apprenticeship agreement, and it should be on the Board of Estimates agenda next month to move up the apprenticeship program back to the Office of the Labor Commissioner. So,
All right.
yeah, so
Big step.
yeah, so we do have a direct pipeline with the school system now, and specific people that Mr. Alexander's working with, so that we can start that pipeline of our students taking working Baltimore City government jobs, or at least training. And the Department of General Services still has the connection. They've given several schools vehicles to work on, and they have a pipeline of employees going from the school system into automotive mechanic positions. As you know, most of the apprenticeship positions are located in the Department of Public Works, water and wastewater. There are also CUB positions. Housing inspectors, there's an apprenticeship program for that. And we're thinking of developing other uh, programs for different types of inspectors, like public works inspector, and the like. But that you'll hear more about it in the future. But the first thing is to get the apprenticeship agreement revised and have it moved back to the Office of the Labor Commissioner.
Thank you. And did you mention the Department of Transportation? Because I think that's
Oh.
another agency that could start apprenticeships. I don't, Chief Administrator Shorter, have you been delving into apprenticeships and trying to, you know, every agency should have some kind of apprenticeship.
Well, I'm certainly Councilmember, thank you very much for the question, and I'm certainly, I don't want to, I don't know that I need to say any more than the Labor Commissioner has already said in terms of her leadership and what is about to happen with the apprenticeship programs. I will also say that the Mayor's Office of Employment Development is moving rapidly to really sign a new deal on behalf of this mayor in terms of some of the work that they're doing to bring young people into the sort of working world. I know this is not apprenticeships, but I just wanted to add to the Labor Commissioner's comments in that we are doing all we can to make sure that we're employing young people, not just for the summer, but really year round. And we are hoping that we'll be able to make some news in the coming weeks in terms of how we plan to leverage American Rescue Plan dollars in that same way. I think it has also been announced that there's a corpse of young people and young adults that the Mayor's Office of Employment Development is also working with to employ and not just train and temporarily employ, but move them into permanent positions within our government and with private sector partners. So again, just a lot of great success in action around employing young people that we're seeing out of multiple areas of our government right now. But again, don't want to overstep what the Labor Commissioner has already announced.
Madam Vice President, I wanted to add that you're right about Department of Transportation and also Recreation and Parks. We're looking into tree trimming services again, because that's there's a great need there as well for tree trimmers as an apprenticeship program.
All of this is just, and I know the council would agree with me that all of this is just so important in trying to get our young people into jobs where our city is in desperate need right now for alternatives to crime. And this is one extreme positive way that we can help. So thank you for your statements and your updates. Appreciate it.
Colleagues,
Thank you.
Councilman Conway and then Burnett.
I've just got one quick question. Thank you, Mr. Chair. For HR, for the administration service 771, I noticed that there was an increase in contractual services that roughly increases the overall budget by $1 million. Do we expect those? What is that for? And then do we expect that to be an ongoing expense going forward?
Mark, hi, this is Lindsay. Are you talking administration service or the benefits service? Benefits administration or DHR administration?
I am looking at page 299, service 771, benefits administration.
Okay. So that's a combination of, we actually reduced money in the transition to Workday. And then the secondary piece is more of a budgetary piece where we used to transfer funds to the city's health reserve. And that's no longer the case. So it looks like it's a contractual increase, but it's actually not.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, you're muted.
We'll jump to Ramos and come back to Burnett. Thank you, Councilman Conway. And then Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was listening in off camera. I want to go back to the question I had in the finance department under risk management that you asked me to ask in this department. My question was, if we're under risk management, it had an expense for drug testing. And so I was interested to know if we're still drug testing for marijuana.
Yes, thank you for the question, Councilwoman Ramos. Currently, we are still drug testing for marijuana. It is still within the panel for substances that we test for pre-employment screening.
So even though marijuana stays in your system a little longer, if someone was just had, you know, either they're in a medical, they have a medical reason to use it, or, you know, they were recreating, which is what happens. So still, we're not hiring people if we find them positive for marijuana.
No, let me just say that we have a process for those who have medical marijuana cards, who use medical marijuana, where they can request a reasonable accommodation pursuant to our ADA policy. And we just looked at the data around this. If we looked at over the last 4 fiscal years or so, we have sent approximately just under 13,000 people to be tested for pre-employment drug screening. And we've had only 190 some who have tested positive. And even with that 190 so that have tested positive, that was not a bar to employment to all of them. We still hired about 8 of them who went through that engagement process, through the ADA interactive process. They had some type of medicinal, whether it be a medicinal marijuana card or a prescription for some other substance that was flagged during their pre-employment drug screen. So we are very cognizant of the potential bar to employment. We are working with the administration to look at some policies around pre-employment drug screening to produce equitable outcomes. We're continuing to do that hard work and understanding that we don't want to have artificial barriers to employment with the city of Baltimore. However, from a risk management perspective, we want to ensure the safety of both our citizens and our employees.
So, Mr. Chair, if I can follow up, so it sounds like the administration is conscious of the fact that, you know, sometimes the testing and the results that could happen with a positive test for marijuana could be negative. It could be a negative impact on whether or not we can hire good people. The other question is, do we do so it sounds like you're working on trying to find an alternative, because it's my understanding that there are jurisdictions now that are no longer testing for marijuana. And then we do periodic drug tests depending on the field, correct? That the person is in, is that right?
There are certain classifications where an employee is subjected to random drug tests. And also there are classifications that fall under the US DOT guidelines where they would be subjected to the testing requirements of the DOT regulations.
Okay, so I need to look into this further, but this came up recently where, you know, the person, you know, does a great job, you know, otherwise, and then just, you know, happen to have a positive marijuana test. And then, you know, I don't think that they were fired, but they, you know, there could have been some other consequences. So I think we need to look into it. And I'm glad that the administration is thinking about it a little bit more. And I appreciate your time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is just to our city administrator, Shorter, our labor commissioner. About a year and a half ago, I was able to, with the school system and BCCC, we were opening up Maryville Emerson Westside Skills Center in the evening for apprenticeship training. And because of COVID came, that's still there. I'm talking to Michael Thomas, who is the vice president of Baltimore City Community College on Liberty Heights. So I would like to sit down with you two and just share what we're doing so we can all be on the same page. And my other question is to Mr. Herbert. I know during the work day, I was down by City Hall and a young man had a check for $1, you know, and I was like, wow, I know the city give out checks that low. So my question is, there were also some city employees I talked to who had overdrafts. Were we able to resolve it, not just the pay itself? Were we able to resolve those overdrafts that a lot of them had because of this new workday system? I know y'all say y'all kind of cleaned it up a little bit, but that was an issue that I got from a lot of city employees.
Yes, we have been working to resolve the issues with the overdrafts. There is actually a policy that mandates how those overdrafts are paid back based on the dollar amount of the overdraft. And so we've been working again with the Department of Finance to make sure that the city is made whole for those instances where there was an overdraft or an overpayment rather.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Burnett?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I had a question about Service 771, Benefits Administration. One of the performance measures speaks to participation in employee wellness programs. And I was good to see that there was an increase in participation over the last 3 fiscal years, which is a positive sign. But then in the sort of narrative, there was an anticipation that there would be a subsequent decrease. One, could you speak to why that is anticipated? And two, the reason it really just stood out to me was just knowing that during the pandemic, there has been an increase in people's seeking mental health resources, mental wellness resources, due to the stress of isolation or loss of family members or just the stress of everything going on. So I would think that we'd actually probably see more people seeking assistance on that front. And if you think otherwise, I guess my other question would be, what are we doing to really adjust to make sure that we're here for our employees, city employees who are going through a lot in their personal lives and still coming to work hard every day? What are we doing to really adjust to make sure it's as accessible as possible?
Thank you, Councilman Burnett, and I thank you for the question. I think that there are two things. One, those kind of mental health services that you are mentioning, those are not considered wellness initiatives. That's EAP. And to your point, you're absolutely right. We have seen an increase over the past year in the number of employees who are seeking EAP services. And so we have done a couple of things to address those increases. One of the things that we did was to reevaluate how we provided the service. So in EAP, all of the employees work the traditional Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. We thought outside of the box a bit, and we went to a 4:10 schedule for our employees in EAP and allowed for later coverage during the week. So instead of Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30, the office is now open from 8:30 to 6 Monday through Friday to provide that additional time for employees who maybe their lunch break is not a sufficient time for them to come into EAP. They now have the ability after work to come in, and those hours to 6 p.m. are available to them. And we have seen an increase. We've also modified and have an up-to-date case management system that EAP deploys where they can better track the work that they do and to better keep in communication and contact with their clients. Secondly, with respect to the traditional wellness programming, the projected decrease is directly related to COVID in that there aren't any in-person wellness initiatives. So the in-person yoga, the in-person calisthenics classes, those have not been going on. However, we have been instituting online tobacco cessation courses. Our nutritionist has been providing content online and digitally to our employees for healthy eating during the pandemic and things of that nature. We also have a number of employees who are either pre-diabetic or diabetic where diet is of critical importance. And our nutritionist has been in touch with many of them and has established that relationship with many of them and has been communicating with them about dieting and healthy recipes during the pandemic to try to keep some of that pandemic weight off of them, where an extra 10 or 15 pounds to an otherwise healthy employee may not be that detrimental to our employees who are suffering with pre-diabetes or diabetes. That extra 10 or 15 pounds could be very detrimental. And so we have been providing wellness services throughout the pandemic, but that decrease reflects our inability to get into our in-person spaces that we had pre-pandemic.
That makes a lot of sense, and it's good to hear that you're making the transition to the more virtual space, because I think that's sort of where we want to be at for the foreseeable future anyway. That was, Mr. Chair, my other question was already asked, so that's all I got for this round. Thank you. And thank you, Director Herbert.
Thank you. Colleagues? Councilman Schleifer? Councilman Dorsey?
Good, thanks.
Councilman Dorsey? Anyone else? All right. Thank you all very much. Appreciate all the hard work and everything that you all are doing every day to take care of our employees. We are now in recess until 7 p.m. and we'll be back for the health department then.